Hi, this is Ms. Zhu, and we're working on Chapter 6, Review 2 worksheet, and it includes the scantron. Make sure that you put all your answers onto your worksheet and on your scantron. When you scan it in class, you won't get your scantron back, so you need to also make sure you circle answers on that worksheet. Another thing on your worksheet you need to make sure that you do is you need to highlight or underline or circle all of the key words in each question. So when I say keywords, I'm looking at 1 to 4 words that are key. So such as number 1, I would highlight or circle how much less cereal, because that's the answer that I want to look for when I choose my answer. And I don't need to pay too much attention to the other words as much as realizing that I'm answering how much less cereal. Now, before I begin, I want to give you a few proportions and methods of setting up your question to make sure that you, just to review a little bit. First of all, if you see a question that is asking for a percent of increase or of decrease, or a percent and anything that's changing, so if they're asking for a percent and something's changing either by an increase or a decrease, you must use this proportion. Percent over 100 equals D, which stands for difference, over O. O standing for original. And that's called do. Do, da, do. Do. Okay, D-O. Difference over original. There's no other way to do this. You have to get this fraction, D over O, to get your answer. I'm referring to questions such as number 14, 15, okay, on your homework tonight. Now, if we're looking for a discount, okay, if you're looking for a discount price, okay, or a markup price, okay, then what you need to do is to take the percent over 100, make that equal to your markup price out of the total, or sometimes it's the original price. So remember that the percent will always stand for either the markup percent, okay, or it could be the discount percent out of 100 equaling your discount price over your total price. Okay, and that would be the setup there. Now the markup and the discount, once you find that, and if the question is asking for that, then that's the answer you're looking for, the markup price or the discount price. Okay, now if they ask for the sale price, then make sure that you take the original price and you subtract it with your discount price to get that amount. Your original minus your discount price. I know I'm abbreviating here. Okay, if you're looking for your selling price, which is the price after a markup price, then you would take your original price and you would add it with your markup price. Okay, and again, to find your markup price, you would do your proportion that's over here. Okay, and then to find your discount price for here, you would use the proportion from before. Okay, a markup price is going to act similarly to a tax rate or a tax price. Here too, I guess we can also add tax. It's really the same process, just a different, word. But taxes refer to marking something up, and here too, okay, we would add the tax here. And I think that's about it. That's really the focus here in our worksheet. So why don't we get started on the homework questions? We'll start with number 1. On number 1, go ahead and we're going to use a proportion to solve this question. Now I know, let me also spend time referring to mistakes that we might make. Here are some common mistakes. So we'll add that here. The proportion we want to set up is, we know that the cereal is getting shrunk by 5%, so 5, I'm going to write that over 100. The 5 represents the box shrinking, so we know we're going to get less cereal. So we know we're going to get some less cereal, and the total cereal boxes right now is 20 ounces, less ounces. And this is the current, the original. Right now, the original box. And we're going to cross multiply, and then what we're going to get is 1 ounce. Okay, and the 1 ounce stands for the less amount of ounces. So when we go to read our question, how much less cereal do I have? My less cereal will be the answer A. Okay, now some common mistakes is to actually take the 20 ounces and subtract it from the 1 ounce and get 19 ounce. Now, if the question were asking for the new cereal box, then that would be your answer. Some of us like to divide 20 ounces with 5%, and then what we get is 20 divided by 5 is 4, and we might think that that's the answer, 4 ounces, which I'm not sure how you can divide ounces with a percent and still get ounces, because ounces divided by a percent is ounces over percent, like a fraction, and we're not really looking for ounces per percent, we're looking for just ounces. So here, when you look at the proportion, it just does just that. It's a percentage and a percentage, and then an ounce and an ounce. So you'll see that the measurements are also lining up here. Okay, so we don't want to make the 19 mistake or the 4 ounce mistake here. Number, I'm going to skip to number 3 here. Here, Heather has a meal that's $17. She's leaving a 20% tip. And the question is just asking, well, how much should she add if she leaves a 20% tip? So here I'm going to circle the word adding to the, let's say add to the amount, add to amount would be the key word that I would highlight in the question that I'm answering. So if I add, I'm going to add the tip. Now, if something is 20%, I always like to think of 10% and then double that later for 20%. So I like 10%. 10% is easy to calculate. 10% of $17 is 17 times 0.5. I'm sorry, times 0.1. Okay, it's the same thing as $17 divided by 10, which is 1 7/10. Okay, which is why I could take $17 and move the decimal once to the left, because I am dividing by 10, which gives me 1.7. Okay, that's the same as the decimal here, the fraction 1 7/10, 1.7. If I add another 0, that gives me 170, which is still the same answer that I get here, which is 170. I'm showing you many different ways, but then I'm going to double that. 170 double that is 340, which is the amount of the tip that I'm going to pay. So because the answer I'm looking for is to add to the amount of the total, then D would be your answer, 340. Now, to set it up in a proportion, I would do 20 over 100 equals x over 17. And remember, 20 represents the tip percentage, and so x represents the tip in dollar amount. So we have that percent, dollar when we set up my proportion. So again, you'll still get 3.40 when you finish that proportion, just like I did it in so many other different ways here. Number 5. I have 640 children here. that are participating, but then there was a 5% decrease. If something is decreasing by 5%, I want to find out how many fewer, so my keyword here is fewer children. Fewer children. So to figure out the fewer children, I'm going to figure out this 5% decrease, the fewer here. So if I use my proportion, I would do 5 over 100 equals x over 640. Or I could take 640 and multiply by point. Now this is the tricky part. A lot of us forget that that percentage that becomes a decimal, I need to move the decimal 2 to the left. So it's going to go from 5 back in the back, 1, 2. So I need to add a 0.05. Sometimes some people like to put 0.5, but 0.5 is the same as 0.50, which is 50%. That's too much. When I finish either cross multiplying or multiplying for my equation, what I'm going to get is 16 children. Okay, so 16 children is the number of fewer kids that are participating. I'm sorry, not 16. I forgot to double that. Those would be 32, and then 32 would be my answer, which is letter B. On number 6, we have Brady scoring 320 points, and then he gets to score 5% more, and that's what he thinks that he can get. So then I'm going to also do a proportion. 5 over 100 equals to x over 320. And remember, 5 is the percent of extra points. And x would be the extra points, the actual extra points, not in a percentage. Okay, this is his total, at least for now. And if I wanted to, I could do 320 times, again, this fraction becomes, percent becomes the decimal 0.05. And if I do both of that, what I'm going to get is 16. And when I get 16 means I get to get that many more points. Now the question here is what Brady is expecting to score this season. Now it's actually asking for his total season points, including last season. So then I would have to take the 16 that I found, and I'm going to add it with the 320. I keep getting the last two questions mixed up here. So 320 plus 16 gives me 336, which is why my answer is A. Okay, let's turn to number 10. Anytime you see a word problem and you're not really sure, but you're able to circle 3 separate pieces of information, that might help you put it into a proportion. Okay, right here, you're going to be able to make a proportion with these 2 pieces of information. I know that 6 inches is going to be per 1 month will happen. So I need to figure out after 10 months, so you see my proportions lined up, inches, months, and then I'm looking for how many inches that'll be. So when I cross multiply, I'm going to get 60 inches. Now the question here, I'm going to go back to look at the question and circle. I'm looking for how many feet deep. Okay, how many feet deep? Feet, well, feet, my answer's in inches right now. Okay, so now I have to do a little bit of converting. So 60 inches would be how many feet? Well, you know, the next question actually gives me some information about inches and feet. So I know there's 12 inches in a foot. So I'm going to do 60 inches. I'm going to times it with that fraction that it helps me to convert, where I'm going to put inches at the bottom and feet at the top. And that way when I multiply, I'm going to cancel out the inches, and all I'm going to have is feet. So then I can use my information that 12 inches is 1 foot. And, whoa, sorry about that. and have 12 inches here and 1 foot here, which means I'm going to take 60 feet divided with 12, which is the same as 5 feet. So yay, there's 5 feet. Now let's